Station today with one of my favorite people that I met. I meet so many people, but there's only one of one Tegan Gan. Um, I'm so happy to have you on today because I think you have a super unique outlook on not only the industry but being a founder and the highs and lows and pivoting and everything that comes with starting a company that I think few people are able to articulate very well, and I think few are comfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
The terminology, the term that I think we'll have to jump into almost like right off the bat here is one around being a cockroach founder, a
Yeah.
founder who refuses to die. And there's so many things we go into there. I think maybe before we jump into that terminology, though, just a quick intro on who you are and what you do, and um, yeah, what you're building.
Yeah, definitely. So I got into the space in 2015 and mainly from a UX UI perspective. I'm a product founder and utility perspective, but I saw what was going on in the space. I know you're really excited about the art stuff, but I saw wallets as being sort of the ledger of life and authenticating. I use the blockchain to authenticate. Our NFTs were called minted moments, and I utilize rarity traits for data points that matter. And my brain likes to solve for real world problems. And for example, on LinkedIn, you can kind of lie about a lot of things, your start date. People don't check it. I could
Your
tell you
job title.
exactly. I could tell you I worked for Microsoft in 2004. Could be lying. Who knows? And so my thesis was that every global brand and IP holder should have their own smart contract to create provenance and be able to trace back all their IP should be issued from this smart contract. And then, for example, Microsoft would do like the working class of 2024. I would claim my NFT from their contract and therefore prove that I actually worked for them. And I was just trying to solve for this new digital age of fakeness that we live in. And also, I think the product was kind of me personified. I didn't really have a voice growing up. um, I'm autistic, a bit weird, left of center, kept quiet most of my life. And suddenly, as I got older, I was interesting, and my nationality, all the things I was bullied for, were interesting. And so I wanted to, you know, I don't know, I wanted to help bring light to those unicorns in the room that have the quietest voices, that aren't sticks, that aren't the hunters of the world. And so Minted Moments was all about authenticating your life's greatest achievements. So we'll stop on that. I don't want to go too deep. But yeah, the cockroach sort of diction I came up with, and it was actually a real honest feeling, sticks. When I told my lead investors at Bloomberg and Laz that I wasn't going to shut the company down, even though they gave me blessing to do so. I could see their facial expressions when I told them I was taking out a second mortgage on my home and borrowing against my Ethereum on Aave. They didn't want me to do that. But in my head, I was just like, life is timing and you don't walk away from tech like this. But I felt like they wanted me to die, almost like you're just giving too much of yourself. And this cockroach theory came up. And so I think you liked it. Like, I do think that there are founders that will do anything to live on. And there's something to that because most founders don't make it their first try. But my foundational tech stack is viable. And to make a long story short, I stayed alive, took myself off payroll, paid the engineers, and now we're looking to be acquired. And the tech is being utilized to aid other companies, which is pretty rad. So it's one of the biggest bets of my life, and it paid off. So yeah. And also, we talked at dinner, like, I know we could get into alts and memes. I know you do this stuff a lot, but we wanted to talk about, the hard truths, sort of like the dead tech society of founders and the stuff we're not meant to talk about. And I thought that would be rad to kind of shoot off some questions to each other. Like, I don't know, what's one of the hardest things you've had to do or been through or something of this nature? Yes.
Of course. I mean, for me watching what you've gone through over the journey over the last few years, what
Yeah.
I think a lot of people ask themselves is, okay, I'm used to opening up Instagram or Twitter and seeing like the headlines of, oh, this company gets acquired and, oh, we just raised a $50 million valuation seed round. And
Yeah.
you see all the like sexy points of being a founder. There is a very real, like, you're about to go eat shit. You're about to wake up every day with a pit in your stomach, be stressed, you're gonna have a whole new, list of bugs to go crush, a whole bunch of new legal problems, payroll, you have to go hire like it's
Yeah,
not fun. It is not this like glorified thing that like the Social Network movie makes it seem like founding Facebook was this like super fun thing. No, it was.
yeah.
I mean, Mark talks about it. It's not fun. Um, what like for somebody who's watching right now, they're thinking about building something. What do you think they need to like actually understand before they become a founder?
It's a commitment, and there's a rare breed of us, right, that can handle it, intermittent crying through the day, vomiting, also, like, in your mouth, like, yeah, it's I will say there's this dichotomy there, like, I wouldn't change anything about my life or my choices, but yes, if you're gonna be a founder, it's a commitment that's gonna affect your relationships, it's gonna affect your dog relationships. I just had a dog die, and now all I can think about is all the times I didn't spend with my dog, that died, and so it's just be ready to have the best time and the worst time of your life, and be ready to pivot, to learn, to not give in to, the status quo, to, fight back against your investors when they say, "Yo, shut it down. You did right by us." Like, take a chance. Like, it's yeah, there I can't think of the word right now. Again, I apologize, guys. I've got very little sleep. Sticks knows this life. Um, know that no eye cream can save you now. You're going to get an average of 2 hours of sleep. Night terrors are a thing. So yeah, I mean, we know the
No,
first.
we were joking about this at dinner. I was like, I'm averaging like 4.5 hours of sleep right now,
Let me
but
tell you, it's a strong look, Sticks. It's a strong look for you.
it's but it's part of it. One word you use there that I'm curious about because I think that there's like a negative view sometimes within the crypto space
Yeah.
more so than outside of it, which is the word around pivot.
Mm.
In like crypto, it's like, all right, well, if you got it wrong, you have to pivot. You're dead already, and there's not like a second chance usually, or it's very very hard to turn the ship around. We've seen it happen a few times, but very rarely does it seem to work.
I am gonna throw in I'm gonna ping pong you there and say, like, pivot with purpose, right? And also when you're building, when I build, I make sure it's not so like it's not just one thing. That like I said, the tech stack I built is to authenticate. We just did something with a commercial lending platform. Boring as hell. I fell asleep a lot, but I knew that my tech stack was able to address multiple verticals, multiple things. And so when you're building that foundation as a first time founder, think in that way and think about different ways where your tech stack can do different storytelling. I think this what's lacking for me is the storytelling and the utility. Still, I mean, memes. It took me a while to get into them. Now my liquidity pools are kind of what I live off of right now, and also like the biggest joy of my life. Like they're like my kids. But there's a lot more that can be happening with AI and memes, and I can shoot off some ideas. I think that's one thing you like about me, are some of my ideas that come out that aren't the norm. Memes are exciting, they kind of are pump and dump, but if we start to actually, they're communities, they're active communities. And so when I think about AI plus a meme, I want to see a meme around, for example, there's a lot of episodic content on Netflix, right? And when our favorite programs get shut down because of the centralized, Netflix making that decision, what if there was a meme against a program and you get to decide that that money goes toward keeping that program alive? Another use of AI plus content, you're a big content guy, is, if you're a big Friends, I didn't watch Friends, but what if, I don't know the actor's names, Rachel ended up with someone else or something? Like, we could use AI and all that extra content that they did film to sort of find out alternate realities, things that we would have want to see, different endings. I think that's a really great use of AI and communities and memes and having the community come together to see their favorite program stay alive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, well, we're kind of seeing that play out right now, and it's been positive reactions to DX Terminal, which is
Yeah.
it's all these AI agents that are like their own personas and they're traders. And it's like watching a game over 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days, the game just ends. But it's
Yeah.
like watching a live show 24/7 with all these agents competing with each other to like trade tokens. Um, and I think we're like halfway through it. I'm sure people who are watching now are more familiar than I am, but that was the first time I was like, oh wait, AI plus tokens or AI with tokenized aspects of it can be entertainment. Like there's a real like actual fit here.
Yes. Another big thing for me is with all this oversharing we do as a society, like when's the last time you picked up the phone and called your grandfather or your old man? I know you're quite close to your family. And one of my big things with Ecoverse and Minted Moments was preserving legacy. When our parents die, their stories die with them. And so I actually got on calls with my Uncle Frank, who now just passed, and I was able to talk to him, record these, put them in a place. Ian Rogers from Ledger said it best. He's now putting all of his things on the blockchain, not on Instagram, because he wants his future family to know that they can find it. If Instagram were to go down, we lose all of that content, right? In a hypothetical world. And so the blockchain is immutable. It is forever. And that's what we were trying to do, was just capture moments and stories and not let those die out. I know I'm jumping around. I'm sorry.
No,
Uh,
no. I
yeah.
think so. We also talked about this over the weekend, which was moving in a world where tokenized, like having all of your information in one spot, using AI to consume that information, and then whether that's using a token to pay for access or to token gate or whatever it might look like. But AI is now becoming a interaction phase for all this information that we have gathered.
Yeah.
And that's probably how most founders should start thinking about AI, in some sense.
1000%. I just want to see, though, I want to see it going direct to the money being made, from people utilizing, open AI and all these other platforms. I believe, as you know, that we're calling it KYAI, play off of KYC. I believe that bespoke LLMs are the future. You kind of combated me on that.
I'm still like stuck in my.
It's creating almost liquidity of your time. You can't look at how many bloody things you do every day, right? And I do think digital twins or second personas, it's the future. And if you can't be in one place, your bespoke LLM, that's just your knowledge or just your team's knowledge. You're no longer leaking secrets. Maybe there's less hallucinations, etc. I want to see a marketplace, and I don't want to talk tokens, because I don't think the world for the proletariat is ready for that. I want to talk subscription models. I want to talk marketplaces, but verticalize. You're an erudite in a lot of things, and you've done it. You've actually done it. You're not just talking, you've done these things. And so for me to pay, I don't know if I'd pay for yours though, Sticks, but for me to pay for someone's, you would get direct payment, for me to talk to your LLM, for my engineers that are in different time zones. And if our LLMs are on and learning and like fireflies, right? If I'm able to talk to them and ask a question and whilst they're asleep, that saves time of me waiting for the next day for them to wake up, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I do think that's the future. I know you don't. And I apologize, guys. This might come off as a slight roast. Sticks is really easy to troll in real time, but it comes from a good place. Just so you know, I'm not being mean. So.
I appreciate the candor here.
Yeah,
I think you're spot on there. I think we're moving that direction for sure. Jason, as I noted, started making it so like you could only reply to his tweets if you're subscribed to him. And I was like, that's like half a step towards
exactly.
paying to like interact with an AI agent.
Because he
Why
needs money.
why do half step? Like just go all the way. Make it so like you want to get feedback. How do we aggregate all of like your thoughts, your stuff into one thing? You pay $10 a month and now you get access to like the most brilliant minds almost in an unfiltered way,
Yeah.
24/7, and as many questions as you want to ask, etc.
But the brilliant thing about it is Jason doesn't have to be there. He can still be doing his empire. And again, that is the future. I want to see, I've seen it now at conferences. A couple conferences have brought in digital twins of someone, but I still think they're there. It didn't get that far yet. But yeah, imagine, you don't want to send a whole team out to a conference. You can just send their digital twin on an iPad, and you can still engage. If you have to go use the toilet, you leave the booth alone, the booth that you paid so much money for. There's still people that can interact with this persona and this knowledge base.
So does persona and intellectual, like your intellectual biases and your own data become the most valuable thing in the future then?
Hell yeah. I mean, definitely. And right now, again, Meta, they're all profiting off us. And by the way, my background is I was at Microsoft in 2004 before Facebook advertising became Facebook advertising. They were a client of Microsoft. I helped build out my Microsoft advertising platform. My thesis is that we will all become our own DSPs, our demand side platforms. And yeah, I think it's ours, you know? Why are we giving it away for everyone else to monetize? So there's that. And then you asked about what I'm building right now. My biggest use case for AI is healthcare and farm tech. Like you and I talked about this. We're going through back to the founder thing. Expect a lot of random ailments that you're going to start getting, and sicknesses. And I don't love medication, but I've had many different specialists give me all these different medications. And when I go to the chemist, I get this sort of 5.5 font report with diction I can't even pronounce or read. Machine Gun Kelly says it best, like he takes the meds, he doesn't even know their names, and I'm the same. But what I do see are these crazy interactions. So we've built an AI proof of concept that Temasek is looking at out of Singapore to do one to many. The chemist should care about these interactions. And also I'm updating the reporting so that it's like, you know, icons and, you know, pretty reporting that is really digestible by the masses, so you know what you're getting into. And I think that transparency is key, for, you know, for so many reasons. You get it, right?
I
You like
get it.
the idea. So yeah, Atros AI right now is something that we're focused on. And I love it. Again, it's a real world problem for our age, for our parents, for our grandparents, for medical malpractice lawsuits, all the things. And it's just an API level at the chemist level, so something Walmart could buy, etc. So
And this is the product of you basically never giving up within your founder's journey of like saying like, all right, like that didn't have traction, but these are pieces of tech that are good. Let's keep like and just
yeah,
finally finding like, okay, here's the fit. Like we know
yeah,
we built something that works. We know we have tech that we can implement. We're smart. And then eventually you get to that like, hey, we found that product market fit. There's momentum. Let's run with it.
exactly. And also authentication is key. If we don't authenticate the data, you know, AI is reading from, you know, hallucinations are a real thing. And so that's something that, you know, my product does from the start is, again, the blockchain is used to authenticate. And I want to see more of that authentication. Because I don't know, you know, what this AI is pulling from, you know, and so I want to know that you know, it's real. I think that every massive company should have their own bespoke internal, you know, not owned by ChatGPT. It should be just their knowledge blocked off. You know, maybe it's a private blockchain thing. It's almost like a private repo, right? So yeah, I don't know. I think that's the future. I hope we get there. And one last thing I'll say, what we were talking about at dinner is my confusion with VCs, the VC model. And again, I'm going to shout out Temasek out of Singapore and Maniala, is that they give you so much money, right? And again, whatever, you have the wrong co-founder, you know, the wrong timing, the wrong macroeconomic situation, it doesn't work. But why give up? I want to see, Sticks, we should do this, like have a conference or a hackathon for the kids that didn't make it. We still have well-oiled units of devs, we still have product. Why is it just being, you know, just like peace out? Most founders don't make it till their fourth or fifth venture, unless you're Michael Lazaro, or Gary Vee. You know, we can't be all blessed. But does that make sense? Like, how cool would that be? And that's what Manial is doing. It's no longer an entrepreneur in residence. They're looking for founders who have failed and
Yeah.
founders who know how to problem solve and say, yeah, the things I'm doing. And I do think you'd be a good fit for that. But
I'm a big believer that yes, it's not till like your fourth, fifth, sixth, 10th,
mm,
who knows how many times that you'll have success.
mm,
I actually find that the founders that I've invested in who've done the best are the ones who can literally get punched in the face time and time again. They can fail. They've
yeah,
failed multiple times. And I think uh for some reason our society views that and says, "Well, you're not a winner."
yeah,
And maybe this comes back to like again the glorification of hey, this guy in his bedroom had an idea and he blew up and now he's like the golden child. But the realistic thing is you want to find a founder who has made mistakes already, is not going to make those same mistakes on this next venture,
yes.
understands the what it feels like to be in failure because once he gets those like stomach feelings of like oh like I'm in, like this same mistake is coming again. I remember when it happened on this venture. They can go okay, time to pivot, time to move, time to adjust. Um, I
But
I,
even
l- I
cooler,
like failures. I like failures. I mean, I
it's
can
the
I
biggest
feel enough to know that I am not perfect. I have had so many things fail and blow up in my face. Um, but I think that's
sorry.
made me better
A 1000%. Failure is one of the best currencies in my mind. Again, you have to be a certain type of person to know how to capitalize off that failure. And that's why I love, the idea of being amongst a portfolio amongst a bunch of founders who have been on their fourth or fifth with wins, with losses, to get those cliffs notes, those cheat sheets, right? Like one of the biggest things I think first time entrepreneurs do is overbuild. Not only overbuild, but then that fear of going live. Have you been there where you like, you build something, but it's like, fuck, when do I just like push it
You know,
live?
I'm like that, like what I'm building right now. Like I definitely even this morning was like, like I could send this today and like it would work, but like it's like, oh, well, what if I spend another 2 weeks? I'd have this other feature in there and it would make it so much better.
Yeah,
But it's like at some point you really just gotta like rip the band-aid off and like let it
totally.
fly.
Yeah. And then yeah, and my first tech startup, Tom Windish invested in, one of the biggest agents in music. You've had your little music stint.
Yeah.
And,
Love Tom. Great guy.
yeah, he's amazing. One of my closest friends and mentors right now. But you know, I can remember I'm very good at moments and memories, but just seeing his reaction when I finally went live, and it was kind of like, this is way too much. And also there was this aspect of kind of kicking out his agents and the middleman of what I built, which was a really interesting. I was like, well, you're kind of like hedging. We're just trying to look toward the future. I see that I'm kind of kicking them out in a sense, but why not place that bet just in case this makes it? But be ready for radical candor from your investors, and don't go cry in a corner. Just listen, really listen, because they know what they're talking about. Windish is Windish because of what he's done, and the things and the lessons he's learned. And so that brings me to the segue of the company you keep. And I think, Six, you're very popular. Got a really big group. Stop it. Don't
No,
make
no, no. I wouldn't consider myself popular.
I keep a very small circle, but the company I keep, we're doers. Find your Wojo, find your sticks, find doers, and find people who question. Don't just go with what's going on, and whatever, rug and all the things. Like, think differently, think ahead, like 10 or 15 steps is how I always do it. Whenever I'm building, I'm like, what's going to come, a year or 2 years from now? I want to be ahead like that, if that makes sense.
What is we brought up multiple investor names, Windish, Lazaro,
Bloomberg, Karen Klein.
Bloom. I mean, you have huge names who've backed you. What is like the interaction that you see most like you talked about, like be ready for like blunt conversations with your investor base.
Yeah.
Do you think most founders don't utilize like their investors to their full potential, or like they're scared to like be straight up with their investor base, or like let them like I feel like I talk to people and they're like, yeah, like my investors wrote me a check and that was it. Like,
Dude, that happens so much. And let me tell you, maybe at the beginning, take some of those, but long term, I don't want those investors. I want the ones like, I'm going to throw another one, seed phrase. Daniel Magard's an
love
investor.
Danny.
And we are actually talking again, and hadn't heard from him for a bit. And I loved it. He was very honest. Like, you know what? I'm sorry I wasn't around. He kind of was one of those guys that gave money and wasn't around. But now he saw the fight, and I got that respect from him because of that fight, because he was so shocked that I wrote the last $150,000 check. I took a second mortgage out. I took myself off payroll in 2023. And that definitely added. But all my new ideas he loves, and he's a great face for these ideas. I just want to be behind the scenes and want to build and let him be that. I suck at that. I'm really bad. I'm introvert, going out, being that face. I can't do it as well. And so yeah, we're in talks. He loves a couple ideas, loves Atros, loves KYAI. And still big, like you, still big in the crypto arts, not giving up on it. But there's some storytelling pieces that he's into. And again, that's, what you do, not what you say, is what's going to keep your investors interested. So back to your question, what you see is what you get with me. I'm definitely a WYSIWYG person. And so I was very honest, about the struggles I went through. I just told you this, Bloomberg bought me a year's worth of therapy. And so that goes to show you again, honesty, I think, is the best policy. It is hard as hell. I've had, spats with Laz. It always wasn't perfect, but he called himself out at this last conference, and he was like, I wasn't a great investor. I was so busy with so many things. And so you got to find the right time, I think. Know your timing, pay attention to what your investors are in. If they're raising for Pixel Volt, don't come to him with, shit, he's too busy. We're kind of small eggs, I don't know expression, to all the other things going on. And so, yeah, again, just keep being you, be authentic, don't give up, keep building. And then I think, as you see, Laz is a big supporter, and now sees that fight, and is very much in my life again. And but yeah, I say it's kind of a weird one. Take some of that money because you need that capital, but long term, you want those investors that have the time. And I'm going to shout out Paul Grinberg, he sits on the board of Flex Point Forward out of New York, and so many other things. Amazing man, a lot of family office money. But he's kind of like a cheerleader. Find your cheerleader. Once you find that person and then you bring it, raising money. I did 2 million in less than a fortnight with him by my side. So find your cheerleader on the investor side as well, is some advice. Is that good advice, Sticks? You
I think
agree?
it is. I feel like we see it happen every day, but the only thing we see happen is the Twitter post of, "Hey everybody, just raised 2.5 million. We just raised 7.5 million." And they tag all the like KOLs, and they tag all the big, "Hey, here our lead was Paradigm, our lead was A16Z." And that, like, founders don't talk about, okay, well, here's why we chose these people. Here's our strategy. Like, uh
Yeah.
here's why we chose to raise instead of doing a token. And like, that's a whole debate now of like, do we do a launch coin token? And
Do you
yeah,
even take capital? Do you bootstrap as long as you can? Yes to all of that. There was one more point. My mind is losing me. Sorry, it's the lack of sleep. Um, keep talking, and then I'll think of it.
yeah,
Sorry.
well, again, the whole conversation has been under the guise of like, if these people are listening. I think also if you are somebody who's looking to buy a token for a company or to start like farming, like if you're an outsider looking into a company and trying to gauge their success, I think this is also valuable for you to like watch and see how these companies are choosing to make these decisions. I think there's a bunch of NFT companies that if you listen to this conversation back in like 2021, 2022, instead of you buying a bunch of their NFTs, being like, "Oh, they raised all this money, they're gonna be huge, they're gonna be massive," you'd be like,
Yeah,
"Okay, is this actually like, is this plan that they have, the people that they chose, everything, does this make sense, or is this just like a flash
yeah.
kind of point
I
marketing
remember.
almost?"
I remember my point, and another great example of minted moments of what I wanted. It's about minted moments was about tracking the impact of a brand or a VC. For example, if I want to prove that Bloomberg invested in me, there's that maybe one tweet at the very exordium of the start, but I have to hope they put my logo on their website, right? I wanted to do. We did this where it was like. Authenticated NFTs that say I'm a Bloomberg portfolio that's in my wallet that was issued by Bloomberg smart contract. Again, there's a data play there. The rarity traits are that I'm a SaaS platform, I'm in the crypto space, I'm from whatever, California. They can start to run statistics on, okay, we did this many investments in this, these worked out, these didn't, but we're tracking that impact. Managerial reviews, usually when I was at Microsoft, it was scary as hell. You're in a room with just one manager, and that moment's ephemeral at best. But if I had a raging review, why is that not a video NFT in my wallet? Do you know what I'm saying? That's the point of it. We're tracking the impact. If you're a MasterCard and you're giving millions of dollars each year to the community, to ESGs, to whatever, all of that data and content is dispersed on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on Instagram. Like, we built a one source of truth social media to show all the things that MasterCard could, did, or, we end up not working with them, but that was the point, is let's create this one source of truth and really prove and show all the things you've done as a brand over.
Should everything be tokenized then, in that sense? Like, everything should be tokenized?
I mean, I'm not going to go that big, I'm not going to tokenize my socks, but like I do think, look,
It worked for for Unisocks. I mean, look at
yeah,
those. They're like, what, $45,000 a pair now.
yeah, but it's still not that's still not going, right? It's not a thing anymore, right? Is it?
No, it's still a
Yeah,
thing. I'm pretty sure
I
it's
mean,
still a thing.
but they're not at their I mean, let's talk about Bored Apes, they're not at where they're at, right?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, from a liquidity standpoint, like timepieces, you love timepieces. Laz loves timepieces. That's a liquidity play, to be able to see, these authenticated pieces and maybe on the smart contract, I did all this work or even cars. I did all this work as the person that found the car that, made that connection between buyer and seller. I should be on that bloody smart contract and get paid in perpetuity if that thing sells again. Does that make sense? So there are, I think, bigger use cases for where tokenization comes in, where creating liquidity comes in. I still think real estate has a big play. It's just too soon. It's a legacy, vertical and brand of older people. But yeah, there are some bigger plays that I haven't seen happen properly. And so yeah, I think not everything, but there's some things I would like to see soon, like our bespoke LLMs. I think that.
I think those are coming very soon.
Yeah.
Very soon. It just comes down to who is the right who can create the right attention around it. That's been a big theme of a lot of the people I've had on has been like, okay, you actually need to get attention. Like attention matters. You can build the greatest thing, but if nobody is seeing it, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I know that is hard if you're not like a very forward facing founder. And
Yeah.
oftentimes a CEO's job is not to be like a marketing head, and like they can be a talking head and face, but a CEO's job is to keep the company alive and flowing and attract the best talent and keep a company running. But you still do need to have a good plan
Here's
around getting
Here's
attention.
a good question for you then, one of these hard questions, okay? So I wasn't just the CEO, I was the head of product, and product's my passion. But what would you do? Because I'm thinking right now, like, do I ever wanna be the CEO and head of product again? Because it's a hard gig to do both,
It
right?
is.
And that's where co-founders come in and where you hope your co-founder steps up. But then I found this like this point where I didn't want to lose that control. Like you lose that control as a CEO. So what do you do in that position, Sticks? Like do you do both still? I think I still do both because when you lose that CEO, I do think then you're answering to someone else. So what would you do? Because you do both, I think.
Yeah, I think being a CEO and overall also having co-founders, there has to be an understanding of like where your strengths are. And I think you have to understand what you're willing to let go of at some point. There are negotiations that I have been like, I want to do that. I am like a very good negotiator, but I need to let go of that and let my developer go do that because I want it to be technical. I want they're going to be interfacing the most of it. He knows what the deal needs to be. So
Yeah.
I let go of it. And
Delegation is key.
if it fails, okay, I can step in and go and try to like recover it or whatever, but I also don't have time to spend 8 hours going and dealing with that. I just
Yeah.
we sit down, here's what needs to happen, go do it, delegate.
Yeah.
Um, at some point, sure, there are other things that I'd love to like cut off, but early on, I think that is often an area where that kills companies where they try to go and be like, "Oh, well, I'm the CEO. I don't want to deal with like marketing. Let me spend a quarter million dollars to go get a firm out of, Dubai to
Yeah.
go like market my product." And it's almost like, okay, you're so early and it's so important. Capital is so important right now that you really need to have a pulse on that.
Yeah.
Don't like outsource that. Keep that in. You're gonna lose a little bit more sleep. You're gonna have to work a little bit harder. It's gonna be even more imbalanced. But I, early days, the less balanced your life is in some cases, the better. I kind of lean into it, but I'm also will always be the type of founder and the type of person who's like, I don't care what it takes. I will make it happen. I don't care how little sleep I get. There's
Yeah.
Red Bull for that. Like, just go.
Something else is coming to mind right now too for just thinking out loud about data points and variables. There are some things in your life when you're someone like Sticks that has so many different projects going on, and I'm not going to name names of which project or what, and maybe you want to be honest about it, I don't know, but there's some things that you have that are maybe money suckers from a monetary standpoint, but that from another standpoint of eyeballs of the project being different and massive, it brings, validity to you, so you keep it alive. You know what I'm trying to refer to, right?
Sure, 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 sure.
So, and everything's not black and white in this founder life. You're going to keep some things alive, even though they're sucking the money out of you, it's in the red. There are other things that come out of it that aren't monetary, that bring your ecosystem, your persona, everything about you. It's so, yeah. So just because something's not making money doesn't mean that it's not adding value to your founder situation. I think that's a really good point. Yes.
I've been very, very strategic in where I get involved and where I invest and what I want to launch, because I view everything as like, okay, if I go really heavy into like AI and I go really heavy into trading and then I go really heavy into uh data aggregation stuff. Well, at the end of the day, all of these companies, and then I like do some lending, like all of these companies at some point, they're little pieces I can pull together and I can call up the right founders, I can bring in the right infra, and they all complement each other in some way. And that
Yes.
gets it, they're additive.
Yes.
And so
Exactly.
like I had a company pitch me, a month ago, and like a year prior, I had done a different investment, and I was like, okay, if I make this investment, it's not just a like, it's not a 2x, it's a 2.5x because of this other investment. And now I can be like, hey guys, I'm building this other thing. I want you to do this, you to do this, and that leads to these really, really, really good intertwinings. And
Exactly.
that's I think that is an area that you have to, once things get more complex, and this is again at like the portfolio level,
Yes.
at the founder level of a company. Yes, you're gonna have that like one sector of your business that might not be working, but you also can't only view it through a capital lens
Exactly. That's
all
all
the
I
time.
the point there is that, yeah, they feed in, and then back to the founder level, and like the team is everything. Due diligence is this whole new thing for me. Went through some things that, learned again a ton, but your founder is like your partner, your marriage partner, and you're gonna fight. You're gonna, learn how to get through those fights, but know that person because it gets ugly. And then also, the more successful you get, and I was like slightly successful on point, the more lawsuits that pop up. It's just insanity. And this, and it's ugly and ridiculous. And you didn't do anything wrong, but it's just the more successful you get, the more people come creeping out. So mind that, and just know, have
Yep.
the right team.
Thick skin. Again, like when I almost joke at this point, I'm like, when something really good happens, I'm like, fuck, there's some really shitty stuff right around the corner somewhere. Like it's
Yeah.
lurking.
Yeah.
And I joke about it. I try to be like a very positive person, but yes, like, their attention and like wins and everything attracts sometimes negative things. And um I think that's also why I think it's very poor taste to like, oh, we just closed this deal, let's go party and celebrate. It's like, no, like you should be monotone. Like, all right,
Yeah.
we did what we expected us to do. There's no reason to celebrate. Like, we achieved what we wanted and we're expecting to do.
Yeah.
The same way, I don't think you should like get down on yourself when the shitty thing happens. It's like, all right, I knew that there are negatives that can happen.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Definitely.
And I think that can amplify and throw you off course.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, I mean, one tough question. One of the biggest mistakes you think you made, maybe as version, day zero sticks, younger sticks. One of the biggest mistakes you made that you feel like talking about, like to help out the founders that are
That's a
listening.
good question. Man, I didn't know I was getting interviewed today. No, that's a good question though. I would say for me, it's I think you need to always be ready to step back. And I think also the only voice that you should ultimately be listening to is your own. I think a
Mm,
ton of people can be your cheerleaders and hype you up and say like how great you are. And you can't let that become like you in your head. Like you can't be like, I'm so big, I'm big king shit around. Like I think that's
yeah.
terrible. The same mo also to like if everybody's hating on you, which I think is a more recent like the I had people hyping me up in 2021. I felt like a big deal, right? Like, and I
Yeah.
think it's hard not to. But back in 2024 and in 2025, like I can talk about Crawley Town and like I mean my everybody in my ear was like, "Fuck you, you're terrible. Go back to America." I've had
Wow.
projects fail. People are like, "You're an idiot. You don't know what you're doing. Scammer." Like, but you need to
No, you
ultimately be able to like be and monotone maybe isn't the word. There's another word there somewhere, but just be stable and understand like, okay, are you doing what you want to do?
yeah.
Did you have the right intentions? Are you happy you tried? Like keep yourself based. And I think that like keeping your feet planted and mentally planted is something that again not enough people talk about. So yeah, biggest
I'm
mistake is
proud
not having that
answer.
that context.
Proud of that answer because I've been very yeah, when I met you, you were just this young fish out of water, and you were and you were very intoxicating in the way that diffident is the word I used. And then, yeah, I saw you, and it happened to me too with my first tech company. I kind of hit, Scooter Braun was getting involved, Skrillex's team was on my board, and yeah, I know it happens. You start to feel a little bit overly confident, but I have seen you grow and learn from that. And this new version 3.0, I'm going to call you, is definitely I've seen that, and that's why I'm on here. Like, and I love that we've always had this candor between us. And you're a friend for life, obviously, founder friend for life. But I,
Equally, same
I
thing here.
cheers, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, that's a really good answer. Just know who you are at your core, and you grow up so much, especially at your age. You grow up so much, just even between 24 and 27. And so just know who you are, know that you are a good human. That's another answer I'll say is hire good humans. When I asked my CTO to take a pay cut, as I took myself off payroll and they didn't want to do it, I was just like, peace out, like that, for the good of the team. It's just a pay cut. So just know who your team is, not just on a technical level, but a human level, I think is so key.
Yeah.
Is something I would speak to.
Yeah, I think we use the trenches term. Uh yeah, like yeah, we're like trenching for like meme coins. I think the real trench oh, this sounds so bad coming out of my mouth.
Just do
It's
it.
it's so like cliche, but like the real trench is like when you're building um if you're like trenching for meme coins, at some point, if you want to like close the tab and walk away, you can stop. But when you're building a company, like the real trenches where you're in war. You can't just be like, like I'm good, guys. Like I'm gonna walk out. Like, no, like you have bullets flying around you. You're stuck in the trenches. The guy to your left, the guy to your right are keeping you alive.
Yeah.
You got to make sure you have the right people. And so like I think co-founders are actually in the real trenches with you. I know that the people that started things with people who are the worst. I like looking back, I'm like fuck. And at some point I'll write a book about that one at some point.
Yeah.
Um, but like I know like currently like what I do with the ventures that I'm in, like I know everybody around me if a
Yeah.
bomb went off, it's like people aren't it's not like I'm tracking people down. It's like they're all there with me and
Yeah.
it's not scared. It's like, hey, we got job to do. We got things to do. Um
1000%.
and that's the mentality. That's the culture. I think culture is also super big.
So huge.
Um yeah,
Corporate culture, and because it gets out too. Like I believe the future. I mean, Ready Player One was one of my favorite books. Way back before the film and everything. And I think the future is clanning up. This world's bloody ending. Make sure you have, a botanist on your team. Make sure you have someone with brawn. Make sure you have the person that knows how to, just this again. The company you keep is. I'm going to keep going back to that. It's why I still go to hackathons. I don't go. It bugs me so much the people I go just to party. I go to recruit, I go to build, I go to learn. And it's hard for me. Big groups, loud noises, but I still like that's why I go to hackathons is to stay abreast all the youngest kids. And I'm really great at finding unicorns at hackathons. And so I encourage you guys at any age, if you're even 50, keep going to hackathons, but don't just go to the bloody parties. I mean, that's just whatever, man. And that's what one thing I didn't like about the crypto space was the party aspect. I mean, there's the brightest minds in the room, and spend your time with them. Not the guy that's going to DJ the after party or whatever, unless it's
yeah.
then
I mean, that's this like idea of like always being curious, always never being like a maxi, trying the new things out, you
Mhm.
know, you have to keep that mentality. I think oftentimes if you are founding a company, that is actually it's even more of a responsibility for on those, on these conferences, on these hackathons to go there with the mentality of prolificate your product and what you're building and then
Mhm.
go figure out what is the pulse in the rest of the industry. Where is the industry ultimately headed?
Yeah,
And you will find that there are often many signals at these hackathons, at these conferences, if you are going there and focused on that and not on, well, he sees like it's a social event, and
yeah,
they're to a small percent, yes, it is a social event. I think that's healthy to like see people and keep those relationships you know fostered, but like you have to stay very focused with, hey, I'm here and this is business and it's a task, and we're an industry that's so young and so like wild west.
yeah.
You can it's you're allowed to go party, and that's just
Of course, yeah. Work hard, play hard. I'm not saying, that bit, but for me, I saw in the past, again, I made it into East Denver hackathon Genesis class, right? And I saw a massive shift from that 2000, I think it was 18 or 17 cohort to now. And I've been going every year. It's changed. That first year was well different. It was about the tech, it was about building. It was, I mean, the room was just all builders. And now it's gotten so big, the money, the sponsorships, and they've gone so big that you get to a room and there's like three people in the crowd, and that to me is selfishness to a certain extent. It's just trying to scoop as much. And so I want to go back to like shout out to you, like, for the companies who do get that traction. And I'm not trying to be mean here because I'm a participant, but blast .io and fantasy.top, mate. I mean, every Sunday night I was making my deck to have it ready to submit on Monday morning. My feedback to them as a participant is stop getting overtly creative. Like, when something's working, don't change it up. I mean, at tactics, sure, tactics were fun. Again, I know you invested, don't know if you participated, but then they started getting into fractionals, and like, it just stop being too creative. Like, keep, once you have it, like, keep that community and then reward that participate to earn. That mechanism, I think, is going to be so big if companies get it right, and truly rewarding those that are doing those transactions over and over. I know we're doing a similar idea and company on the liquidity trading and impermanent loss, and we can talk about that another time. But just, I get so frustrated when people change up things when it's a working model, because they lost me as a user. I just stopped. It just got too much. But I did.
did they fully stop, or they just expanded in like so many other directions that's
That is that answer. Yeah. They just started bringing new shit in I felt like it was like every almost month or quarter. It was just like, suddenly it was this, suddenly it was that. Again, tactics were cool, very hype, but it was working, man. It was working. Just submit your deck, and I was proud. I was sharing it. I was earning money. Opening packs has always been a thing for me since I've been a kid. I've been a card collector. I pull heat. But opening up my packs every morning. Sorry, I do on a good weekend, I'll go scoop some cards and just like, yeah, open packs. But yeah, it was really frustrating. And I don't understand the reasoning. If something's working, wait till you start to see a drop off. But anyways, I'm not shitting on them, but yeah, it was frustrating. But I
no,
had,
but
I learned.
I think it's a good point. Like, regardless of if I'm an investor or not, I think it is it's a good example of the dangers of spreading too thin. And like, I had a feedback from a friend in the space who I consider one of like the best performing investors in Web3 that I know of, who's like my age. And
Mhm.
he looked at the product, and literally the feedback was, okay, you need to do one thing better than everybody else and stick to that. And just
Yeah,
like you have like 20 really good things all like within here. Just do
yeah,
one though. Do
yeah.
that, dominate it, absolutely smack the rest of the market. Keep those other things like in there in some way, or like,
In the
work
pipe.
them in over time. But if you will die the death of 1,000 paper cuts if it's everything's average across the board. You will win much better. You'll have a better chance of like winning and surviving and getting that breakout velocity if there's that one thing that attracts everybody to, and you're the best and nobody can touch you on.
Yeah. And one other thing I'll say is I find that companies that make it lack giving, um, recognizing the community. Like, if I take the time, sorry to say this, I know you're a big fan, but the hundreds, big fan of their ethos, their clothing, everything. And there's a few times where I'd wear their stuff to conferences and like tag them, shout them out. It's not hard, mate, to hire someone to at least engage with the community that takes the time to shout them out. And they never shouted me out back. And I never understood that. Like when you have a community member that's willing to do that, like show that it makes you proud, as a wearer as such. So I think that companies need to recognize their active community members and
Yeah.
have some on the team. It's such a low level job, but dude, it speaks volumes. Like this necklace I'm wearing, I'm going to shout out. It's Christopher. I'm going to ruin his name right now. Christopher Kites, who did this with Post Malone, and it was a gift from Mod Sun's crew. But like, I'm so proud of this. And I don't know if you know the story about the jewelry, the 3D jewelry, but he did it alongside Posty and made so much money. And Post Malone just gave him the money, and he ended up making a company out of the profits. And, he just kind of used, Post Malone wasn't a big part of it, but I love that Post Malone gave him that capital back to build an even bigger brand. And, me shouting out right now is just a thanks, and so to make sure that you recognize your community, and it creates more excitement for other community members to be like, oh, I want to be recognized as well. And I think that's where a lot of bigger companies fail, is not recognizing those people on the ground that support
At
you.
some point, I think these companies get big and they're like, we're too cool to like, this guy's got 50 followers. But I think where you actually win or lose, and I talked about this on like the marketing plan that I've discussed with people, is like you could go spend 50K on like one KOL, like one big name, or it could take 50K and find 100 people who have
Yeah,
never been platformed before, but they make good content. They really care. Be like, hey, we
grassroots.
fuck with you.
Yeah.
But like, I don't think I'll ever leave that with anything else I do from now on. I don't think I'll ever go to like, I just want the biggest name. I will always go to, where can we find the smallest people, give them platform, help them survive, have them grow with us, and then just keep rinsing and repeating, going through that.
And tell those stories, take the time. Again, it's so quick, shout out, but it tells this authenticity of your brand. It shows that you care and that you're not doing what's so simple, spending money on a tweet from, some famous person has been done. And seriously, what is that ROI, mate? But
I can tell you it's not a good ROI. Like, I know, I've talked to people, I've worked in the talent space. It's a fucking shit ROI
yeah.
99% of the time.
So I hope more companies start to do that. Yeah, I have maybe 20 active followers on Instagram, whatever. But that knowing that you touched, that's the wrong word, that you impacted that community member. We talk, to the other young people like ourselves that are, and like, yo, I just got a shout out. That's the shit that goes
Yeah.
viral.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that's tangible. And I want to see more of that, because yeah, in the crypto space, it's so easy to throw money at the big stuff, but it's the community that are doing that we need to recognize to really prop you up and keep you live longer. So
100%. I'm curious, in your eyes, because we've talked a ton about like the founder and the strategy, etc. More into the market though, like where do you your current pulse on the market? I know you've been doing liquidity pools, a little bit on the token side. Like what's got you excited? Where do you think the market's headed? What is Tegan's pulse?
You know, we sparred on this. I want to see more transparency and reporting on the dexes and the liquidity pool, platforms. I want to see. I'm a product founder, so I want to see things that, again, this is just an idea coming off the cuff, but they should be looking at usage, the amount of trades I do on Orca, on Jupe, I want to see them go to us for almost like this community of beta testers, that we get access to the new, to give our feedback. I think again, it's going back to community and learning off of us and our knowledge, because I'm like, dude, where's this functionality? So I'm just building it like you do. Like we're building it now on the side because we don't sleep. Our thing's called Deferi. We need to work on that name. E came up with that name. But my pulse is look to your community, recognize them, ask them the questions. What do you want to see? Because you're in the same boardroom, right, with the same guys. It's like getting someone to read over your term sheet, right? You've been looking at this over and over. Get fresh eyes. But again, that storytelling component is what I think is going to be a big thing. If the way brands are interacting with their users is changing. And I want to be that bridge. I want to see brands start to go direct to the smaller people and involve them. If I could, like, I play Magic, right? If I could sit down, I would pay for this experience. If I could sit down with the Magic team and be brought in to develop a new card, for example, I mean, that's rad, you know? I would pay for that experience. And so I think it's about, you know, yes, all these memes and stuff are great. I want to see, though, a bridge or a marketplace of bridging those meme, you know, token holders to true utility. And again, I'm never going to stop talking about community. That answer your question, I feel like,
No, I
maybe.
think it's a great answer to it.
It's not technical and like about altcoins and stuff, but it's about, yeah, it's about how do we get these platforms, you know, really moving on, not fizzling out, not making it and then fizzling out, because there's so many right now. And the ones that are going to win are the ones that bring those human stories to the forefront and again recognize your day zero users. So that's my pulse, or that's my hope anyway.
It's
I
a
don't know.
it's a I think it's a very, very smart answer to a question that I think most would have gone and been like, "Oh, you know, Bitcoin's going up, and you know, I think altcoin season's around the corner." But
You do that all the time on these, so I'd like to. I did some research. I know that's your thing, and I love it. But I do like to bring things different.
well,
So
no, the reason I think it's such a great answer is actually though we've seen such a rise, and there's certain sectors or verticals within the industry that it's like, okay, there's 50 new, you know, GambleFi companies coming out. There's a whole bunch of InfoFi companies coming out. And you see this like rotation of, and it might not even just be farming, but it's just like, ah, like this is hot right now. Oh, but this popped up. I'm going to hop over here. And like, this is my new favorite.
exactly.
But there is, for the first time ever, it's like, okay, more attention on this industry. More Web2 builders are being like, ah, like I can go, I can write code. Let me go over there. It's becoming easier and easier to launch products. So all of a sudden, in an industry where actually all you have to do is be very, very smart and willing to like, you know, build something without any documentation around it.
Yeah,
Now you actually have to come up with a stickiness to your what you are building and a actual reason to have people like emotionally fall in love with your product. Not only it's just good, there'll be tons of more products that come out that are, you know, 99% of what you've built, but like people are like, ah, like I have a feeling when I use it. And you
yeah.
know, yeah.
And that stickiness you talk about, again, I'm not going to go more technical and analytical. I'm going to go to, like, or I'd love to tell this Orca story. If you know anyone at Orca, right now I'm pulling again, and I'm not telling everyone to do this. You have to be fucking on it. Like, you have no life. I wake up every hour to check on shit. That's why we're building what we're building. We need more automation in Orca and such, in liquidity pool trading. But I've paid my mortgage with my harvesting, with harvesting yield. If we want the proletariat and the masses to start, you know, we got to start teaching them these real human stories and putting those stories out there, because right now it's for the technical, right? Like, blockchain and Web3 and AI is built by technologists. But if we want the whole world to get involved, that's why I built Atros, because it's tangible. My mom, you know, got really sick off of these medications that interacted poorly. That's a tangible story. And so I want to see more of these stories that, yeah, dude, it is possible if you don't get selfish and actually exit your yield, your you know, your harvest. It's crazy, and I'm not even playing with that much money. And it's possible. And so I think that is what's going to make the masses jump into more transactions and more usage and more users. So I hope that was helpful. I know we're coming on the last few minutes,
No,
so
no. I mean, again, help. I feel like when I have these conversations with you, that you view everything through a very unique lens.
mm,
I also think that like something that's complementary to you is you always come up with like new ideas, and I
yeah,
think you have to be an idea factory if you're a founder. You have to like be theorizing about how like where is the industry going to change and how can I be part of it, and
yeah.
uh yeah, if you have one good idea and you're like 6 months into it and you haven't had like another good idea while you're building, you're probably fucked.
Yeah. Fun fact, I had 0 friends growing up, bullied throughout university, and what I love about this story is I had to make up my friends in my mind, and, as an older person now, what I love is that all these negatives that came from my autism and my just awkwardness are now superhero strengths. I can come up with ideas like that because I constantly had to come up with, you know, my friends and these things, because otherwise I was just in my room playing video games, and gaming as well, you know, helped me. But I'll end on being different for all you super young founders. Like, it gets better. Keep being different. own it. I'm still struggling a little bit, but it gets better. And bullying is a big thing for me. So just yeah, accept your weirdness and use it. It will all come back as a superpower later. So I hope that.
Incredible, incredible. Well, Tegan, as I said, I always enjoy talking to you. I think you have such an amazing outlook on building in life and through the highs and the lows.
I appreciate
Um,
it.
I
Yeah.
think I want to make sure that people that want to be able to connect with you have a way. Where should they connect with you? How can they follow what you're
Yeah.
building, etc.?
I'm not massive on X, but I do share my founder story on Instagram. It's Teagues on Tech everywhere. I'm gonna start trying to get back on LinkedIn a bit. I have a new path I'm taking into potentially Singapore. So yeah, Teagues on Tech on Instagram is probably the fastest way, but I'll try to get more involved. And thank you again for all your support and your friendship
Of
and
course.
all the roasting I do on you in real time.
Hey,
Uh,
somebody's got to give me shit.
you make it easy, but it's also fun because you don't take it too seriously. So this is a good human, guys, and yeah, just really excited for all you're building, and hope that we can start doing more together soon.
Of
Yeah.
course.
All
I
right,
appreciate the kind words.
of course.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I really do encourage you to go give Teagues a follow on Instagram. And if you want to reach out to her in some way or whatnot, please do that. And as always, thank you for tuning in to another great conversation. And thank you, Teagues, for hopping on and sharing your time with us.
All right, sticks in a